You're still watching Newsday. Nigeria's Supreme Court on Thursday ordered governors of the country's 36 states to henceforth steer clear of funds meant for the administration of the 774 local governments who until now control the funds, as well as constitute caretaker committees to run the affairs of the third tier of government. Apex Court says the control of funds of the local government councils by the state is unconstitutional. This judgment is in respect of a lawsuit instituted by the federal government through the Attorney General of the Federation against the governors in a move to ensure full independence of the local government councils from the control of states under Section 162, subsection 4, 5 and 6. It doesn't provide for the existence of a joint account for both the state and local government councils. In the lead judgment prepared and read by Justice Emmanuel Agim, the court ordered that henceforth funds meant for the local government councils be paid to them directly from the Federation account and not through the state governors. Joining us now in our Lagos studio to share their perspective in the latest judgment is Dr. Pascal Ebhohimen, expert on strategy, policy and governance, as well as Chikwe Udensi, former Secretary General, Association of Local Governments of Nigeria, who is also joining us from the Abuja studio. Pleasure to have you gentlemen join us on Newsday. I'm going to start with you, Sir Udensi, in Abuja regarding these issues. Now, some subsections of the Nigeria Constitution supports the autonomy of local governments nationwide. Why was it necessary to have the Supreme Court interpret this, you think?
I do not know, actually, but a lot of people believe that it is because of the intransigence of those who are supposed to operate it. Because of the dishonesty in the process of operation, that's exactly what caused it. And as much as we are very happy, as much as we are praising the Attorney General for a job well done, it is very important that we don't have short sight. We should not think that because right now the idea is that the money has to be paid directly to local governments, that Daniel has actually come to judgment. It can still be circumvented effectively. The problem we have today is not that we don't have good laws. The problem is that those whose job it is to implement these laws always will have a way to circumvent them. Yes. So many of us are of the opinion that we still have to go a little bit further than what we have done right now. What do I mean by that? If we say that monies has to now go directly to local governments, it is also important that we do not forget that those who are going to receive this money at the local government level must also not be within the grips of those who are trying to avoid in the process of sending the money directly. I hope you understand what I mean. What we ought to do here is ensure that state operators, state governments, do not take unnecessary advantage in the process of making sure as to who is there as a local government chairman. Let us make sure that it's a process that is devoid of unnecessary interference, is devoid of influence. Otherwise, we might get back to square one, where we are coming out from.
All right, Dr. Ebhohimen, let's come back to you here in the studio and talk about this issue. Because the governor of Oyo State, Seyi Makinde, has said this is a big distraction because you look at it closely. He has said Nigeria still does not produce enough. And we're talking about sharing monies, so to speak, and says that this money from FARC still does not address the problem that productivity is at an all-time low. And there is hunger in the land, and there are germane issues to be tackled as against this. So talk to me about this. How do we balance this particular issue? And where does this issue stand? Is it a step in the right direction or probably the right step at the wrong time?
Thank you for having me, and good day, viewers and other Nigerians. The Federal Supreme Court ruling and judgment granting autonomy to the 774 local government in Nigeria. It's a landmark victory for all of us. And it's a milestone achievement in the process of making politics and democracy meaningful in our continent, particularly in Nigeria. Why do I say so? Look, we need to respect the fundamental right of every man, that all human beings, Nigerians, citizens, they are domiciled, they live within the 774 local governments. Therefore, for governance management to be meaningful, governance must be brought to their doorstep. In other words, it does not remove the fact that the moment you reorganize the local government so that we have the desired executive capacity, get the right people properly elected as chairman of this local government, then of course, the issue of autonomy, independence, accountability, transparency, not only in terms of political position they enjoy, but in terms of the power, the control over election of people to manage the affairs of this local government. Two, autonomy and independence in the use of the resources that come to them directly from the federation account, and then more importantly, the devolution of power. Because there is some, let's take an illustration, like a typical organization. You have the board, you have the managing director, you have heads of department, then you have the sessional and the ordinary staff. Now, at the strategic level, policies are formulated, just like same federal government. And we expect departmental heads to be able to implement such policies. So it doesn't mean that if you have the federal government there, that you have control over resources that are supposed to be meant for the people, where you have 90% of Nigerians living, and services, infrastructures make more sense to them because they impact them directly. So when we are talking about circle of influence and the ability to control the resources within that area of jurisdiction, then we can all be rest assured that, you know, democracy is working. And the dividends of democracy we impart on the people.
Do you share Governor Makede's sentiment? Is my own question to you, because he says this is just a major distraction, that there is hunger in the land and we are not producing enough. We are not tackling that.
The process we have evolved now, this new arrangement, will ensure that poverty is reduced.
How?
And I'll tell you how. If you have a local government chairman properly elected, and we have members of the councillors properly elected, and when we talk about devolution of power, there is what they call strategic devolution. They can think 15 years ahead to say, what do we require in this local government?
No, we're talking about now. He said that there's hunger in the land right now.
And what we are saying now
yes,
is not to be implemented immediately. First thing first, we need to restructure. The constitutional amendment must take place, giving more power to the local government and the state government, and of course, so the sharing of responsibility in terms of devolution of power is very critical.
Okay.
And that is where the problem is. Because these few people that control the states and the federal government don't want to let go the control over fiscal devolution. You know, what I mean fiscal devolution, so that local government will have independent and opportunity to be able to say, look, what resources do we need? What area do we invest to have more money? What they call internal generated revenue. Apart from the statutory allocation from the federal government and also from the state government.
All right, Dr. Ebhohimen, we're going to come back to you, but we still have Chikwe Udensi in Abuja still with us. It's good to have you. In your view, do you think financial autonomy of local government is a fail-proof scenario regarding transparency in public expenditure of local governments themselves in this regard?
Yes. Let me...
Please hold on. Let him... Yeah. Go ahead.
I didn't understand exactly what the doctor was saying, but the fact remains that Governor Makinde was not being honest to himself. He should understand that the part of the problem we have today in the country is because of what the governors are doing. The hijack of that revenue that ought to trickle down to the local governments. That is exactly what caused part of the problem we have. For when we talk about hunger in the land, the state governments hijack the monies that ought to go down to the land. So the land we are talking about is not necessarily the state governments. We are talking about the common people. Don't forget that over 70% of our people live in the rural areas. And that's exactly where the local governments are. So money is meant for the local governments, which, while I was Secretary General of the Association of Local Governments of Nigeria for 6 years, never went to local governments. The state governments hijacked this money up to today. So it is the landmark arrangement, and I do not believe with back in there that by any stretch of imagination, what government has done or what the Attorney General has done is a distraction. It's not a distraction.
It's not.
It's a reality that ought to be faced and faced very squarely. And like I said earlier, let us not stop halfway. If we stop halfway by allowing the same instrumentality of governance, especially at the state level, if they are the ones that will determine who becomes the local government chairman, we are going to go back to square one. That is the fact of the matter. As to your other question, which I don't necessarily understand very clearly, what was the question?
Yeah, I was talking about the financial autonomy, and of course, when it comes to transparency in public expenditure, is this a fail-proof scenario for the, now that we have this landmark judgment? Can they actually, give deliverables for the people that actually need them? Can we actually trust on the local governments to, get this done?
Well, if you make sure that the process of ensuring that who becomes there is transparent, what do I mean by that? Let it be a democratic process. Let us take it away from the hands of governors. If we don't take it away from the hands of governors, we'll end up having the proteges. It has to be those who the governors want to be there. And who are we talking about? They are going to be those that want to be patronized for the job they have done in the party. Party men, not necessarily those who are essentially qualified to do this job. So it is very, very important, extremely important, that while we rejoice over the fact that money has to go directly to local governments, in whose hands are they going into? It's more important. That is even more important than it going to local governments. If it still goes into the wrong hands, we are going to remain where we are. It must go into the hands of those that are elected. And you know that the process of this election, if it is transparent, if it has integrity, then people will look at the quality of those they are putting in there. And that's exactly what is very important. Everybody held the idea of Section 162 earlier when it came out. The idea was for these monies to come from the federation account during the FACA sharing into state account, jointly owned by state and local governments. What the idea was that the state will now take part of the internally generated revenue into the account, for which now it will swell, it will enhance, it will enlarge the shares of local governments.
Exactly.
But it never happened. Rather than that happening, what we saw, that the state government hijacked the whole amount of money. So while we're happy, rejoicing, thanking the Attorney General, and also thanking all the federal government gladiators that were in that process, especially the judiciary, while we are thanking them that they have done a good job by saying that this money should no more be hijacked halfway. It should go to local governments. In that process, let us ensure that those in the local governments who are going to now receive this money are going to those who are elected by the people. If we do not do that, I don't think we have had a Daniel that has come to judgment.
All right, let me pick up from where Mr. Udensi actually just ended his last conversation from. Is the question about replacing an old emperor with the new ones and almost still breathing graft within the system? That is one question on one hand. How do we tackle that we do not have the same problem just repackaged? One. Two, I want to find out from you also. There are talks that this might become very political and might go very dirty. Because remember that elections that are being held at the local government level and the local council levels are being controlled by the state INEC. And some have criticized the governors of probably pulling the strings with those that actually are heading state INECs across the nation. That they might use this as an opportunity to begin to spite people. As they will say, you will probably, because of you want to spite your face, you cut off your nose to spite your face. And that might not go down well. How do we ensure that there are no blowbacks from this if a local government chairman refuses, probably, as some will say, hand over some of these funds to the state governors to dispense?
Thank you so very much. Now, the first question has to do with the issue of trust, issue of transparency and accountability. Now, what we are saying is this. Once the local government get the right people in place, carefully selected and elected chairman, and those elected to manage the resources of the local government, once you have them in place, then don't forget, every local government differs from another. For instance, a local government can decide to have, traditional institutions, because they know themselves, to work with politicians, right? And we know them. They know them to their houses. So if any of them, all those elected people, dip hand into the resources that belong to the local government, right? They'll go to the house, bring him out, and defend, and account for his stewardship. Unless having to have somebody.
Constitutional is the question.
Constitutionally, it will be backed up because there will be the constitution have to be amended.
Jungle justice.
True federalism.
Constitutional.
True federalism requires,
yes,
right, sharing of powers and backing up constitutionally.
No, but going to people's
it
houses
and
picking
no,
them
I'm coming. It has to be enforced. Then we improve on the rule of law and governance.
Okay.
When there is improvement in the rule of law and they are enforced, you see, the beauty of decentralization and devolution is that the government is nearer to the people. They know the characters that are there. They elected them. Let me also add this. The fact that we have INEC, state or federal, when it comes to local government, there's what they call political autonomy. The Constitution can make provision that they should organize the election.
The Constitution, up until now, has not made that provision. The provisions within the Constitution states that whatever is being done politically and in terms of elections within the state is being run by the state.
That's what I'm saying. Doesn't mean it must remain the same. As we are making changes, there should be changes in all areas, constitutionally and otherwise. Okay. Because the reason why there must be changes, you cannot allow the type of thing we are thinking about to be operated within what I call the imperfect system that full of imperfections and irregularities. First thing first, let me give you an example. If you have the right, competent leaders to manage the affairs of the local government, for instance, they will put in place a very strong and sustainable performance management system and budgeting system, which is developed within the ambit of the strategic plan of that local government. And it make a public document. Everybody will see it. And at every stage of the implementation, there will be monitoring and tracking by members of that community, of the local government.
All right.
So this is the point we are talking about. So it is when you have the wrong people at the helm of affair who do not know the left from their right, who are not competent to manage the local government. That's why we have run into that problem.
All right, if I may come in, you know, Mr. Udensi, you're still with us from Abuja.
You're the second question.
Yeah, we're still going to talk about that. You know, earlier on you were harped on the issue of unelected, you know, government officials running, you know, the local government, as it were. So are we saying the era is now almost over? And regarding the issue of direct funding from the federal government, so how will this interplay go, you know, regarding getting needs, the needs of the people attended to when it comes to funding in this regard?
Well, I was happy. I was very happy when I heard the Senate President, Babio, talk about going back to the Senate and the legislature to make sure that the right thing is done. If we stop at where we are right now, I do not think we would have achieved much. The important thing would be for us to now go back to the legislature and make sure that that provision that allows for state independent electoral commissions to run the process of having local government officials elected. If we do not go back there to stop the idea of state governors being in charge, it will not be in the best interest of the process that we have started. But it is not necessarily the idea that it has to go from the hands of state governors to the federal government. No. We can put in place the necessary instrumentality that will make sure that independent people run the system. That is what we're saying. Let us not move from fry pan maybe to fire. What we should do here is ensure that, number one, those who are going to be the ones to be the umpires, those who are going to run the affairs of the State Independent Electoral Commission must be those who are totally independent. Let us go by the word, independent. That is where the problem lies. If you see what the state electoral commissions are today, they are politicians. That is why when you see an election is conducted, some places where they are conducted, the fact remains that the party in power wins everything. Even the councillors, if there are things like deputy councillors, they will also win. But the problem is, the people who it has been entrusted into their hands are essentially called politicians themselves. So, what do? Ensure that those who are going to man the state electoral commissions, if eventually the laws are amended, it should be those who are not political actors. They should be independent people who have integrity, who have honesty. We know them, we have them. They're in the system, they're in every state. So let us not just go pick up people who we know, pick up people who are essentially politicians to go and be umpire in a process that has to be democratic. Of course, you know, the result will be hectic. So essentially, we're not saying that let us take the state INEC away from the hands of governors and then give it also to federal government who are also politicians themselves. We should ensure that it becomes independent. What do I mean by independent? Let us take it away from those who are not politicians and ensure that democracy should have some level of integrity so that those who are going to be chairman of local governments in that process should be those who the people have selected. If for some reason the people have decided to select a criminal to run their system, so be it. But if you ask me today, you know that everybody is saying it ought to be men of integrity. And I have no doubt in my mind that if it is allowed to be fair and free, the people who select honest people will have honest people amongst ourselves. That is what we're advocating. We're not saying that we have perfect human beings. No, but let us do it to the extent to which people's suffering should be ameliorated. Right now, the country is at crossroads. Apart from being at crossroads, the little resources that are coming are being hijacked, and hijacked very brutally by people who have no conscience in the system.
All right.
Second question.
Okay. Okay, you go ahead. Okay,
You can recast. I mean, you can.
No, you can go ahead if you want to react to that. So go ahead.
Yes. I agree with Udensi to a very large extent. But I'm also saying the 3 tiers of government, federal, central or federal government, state and local, it should be given the independence and power to manage its affairs. Talking about political autonomy also means that within each local government, the people, you know when we say the people, the traditional institution or the various community that make the local government, the people themselves, not everyone is a politician, and the politicians themselves all should be in control of the election of those people to manage the affairs of the local government. When we have check and balances, when there are opportunities for people to showcase what they have done, they are nearer to these people who will monitor what they are doing, rather than expecting a few elected people in Abuja or the state level to come and dictate what happens at each local government area. So it is, for me, it is critically important, right, that when we talk about devolution of power, there should not be overreach. I mean, every sphere, tier, local government should be respected.
Very good.
It's important.
Very good. I'm glad you mentioned the words checks and balances, and that's exactly probably what the Supreme Court has also, supported in no small measure. Sir Chikwe Udensi, he's the former Secretary General, Association of Local Governments of Nigeria, joining us in Abuja, and of course, Dr. Pascal Ebhohimen, he's a strategy, policy, and governance expert. Gentlemen, I'd like to thank you both for joining us on Newsday. It's good to have you with us.